And let's take a look at the picks and bans and any comments that you have, ZSX40, please.
No, I was going to say, you're not a scrub if you take a map off Rafa, particularly when you're playing in detrimental conditions. So he's one of the most solid players out there in terms of his skill and the way he plays methodically, and he's progressed so much. But Sib, likewise, is quite an eccentric player. And in all honesty, he's just torn the challenges apart ever since he went back into it, and was quite unfortunate to drop back into it. So he definitely brings a lot to the table as well, and I think will pose quite a significant challenge up against ZenAku.
I'm really looking forward to this set. I personally love ZenAku. I mean, if you pop at his stream, if you ever have a chance, it's similar to Rafa's in that he's willing to kind of talk through what he's doing during his games and talk tactics and just answer questions in chat. And Sib, he's a great player. He's been here before. He knows exactly what it's going to take to get back into the league, as you mentioned before, bouncing in and out again. And I'm looking forward to this set.
Yeah, I mean, with the best of 5 situation, a lot of folks in chat been asking, like, wait a second, are all matches best of 5? The first 4 challenger matches are indeed best of 5. They'll be switching over to the double elimination best of 3. So 2 more matches. These will be best of 5 because everything's on the line. One of these players is eliminated. He's no longer in the tournament, no longer in QPL, and it's fighting for their life right now. So as we move on in the day, thank you everyone that is joining us. It's great to see a lot of enthusiasm, not only for the players, but just for Quake Champions in general. And on behalf of the entire production crew, it is great to have you along for the ride all day. So our third matchup is going to be starting up in just a moment. Let's go ahead and kick it over to our casters. It's Ketchup and Flea.
Thank you very much, everybody. Now, I mean, this matchup alone is... I think it really will depend on, I think, confidence levels to make a big deal. Sib can definitely have... I think of all things Sib can be confident in, it's his aim, more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When Sib's on point, he's just a monster when it comes to the aim. We've seen it time and time again. When the pressure really mounts, sometimes he buckles, but when he does manage to stand up to it, he can pull out some phenomenal shots. Now, on the other hand, ZenAku has got more consistency to his name, I feel like. If we just look at the history, Sib has kind of been seesawing in and out of the Quake Pro League, starting in the Pro League and then dropping out to Dewey, getting back in by beating West, then losing to Genix. So he's been in and out a whole bunch of times, whereas ZenAku, he got in the Stage 2 finals and has been, ever since, doing some decent work on the NA side of the bracket. So we've got a lot of consistency out of ZenAku, but Sib, you know, he can really perform when he's up to the task.
Well, looks like there was an accidental wrong server, so we're going to quickly back out and reselect the correct one. Not going to take long, a couple of minutes maybe not even that, but I guess we'll just continue to talk about the matchup right before it happens. Now, Corrupted Keep, we always talk about how it's kind of a one-off map in Duel. It is a different beast in its own right, the removal of the rail. And, you know, it's where you can really start to see those kind of snowball victories. But weighing these two players up side by side, I'm just really interested to see what happens. Because if Sib is able to play a level of which he knows he can in terms of like accuracy, he's able to hit some really, really good shots. And while he was in Pro League, we did see some phenomenal maps from him because of the rail. The rail has been his star weapon for quite a few of these maps, but it's not always on fire. And I think at least with Sib, from conversations that you have with him and stuff like that, he is pretty good at acknowledging in the middle of a map what weapon is kind of like not his best at the moment. And he kind of juggles his weapon usage depending on which ones I think he feels good about. So yeah, we'll see what kind of shape that's shaping up today, I guess.
Unfortunately for him though, Corrupted Keep just so happens to be the only map in the pool that doesn't have a railgun. So you've been hyping up that weapon of his already, but he won't have access to it at all in this first matchup. And as you mentioned yourself, this is like a bit of a one-off map. The snowball effect can be real. We saw it earlier in the previous matchup, right? Garpy starting off extremely strong on Corrupted Keep. I think people in chat were already saying, GG, it's over, CNZ, pack your bags and go home. And look at what happened a few matches afterwards. CNZ just turned around completely. So this
biased UK man in me is devastated. I am devastated for Garpy. He's a friend, he's a good guy, he's a really nice lad, but I just couldn't close it out. Anyway, that was in the past, and I will get over it as we move into
sad day for UK esports, but we've got plenty more to come. It's a good day for Quake esports as we're about to jump into our third series of the day. We've got ZenAku representing Australia going up against Sib from NA.
Looks like the warm-up is coming to a close, so for a second time, we're going to kickstart this first map. between Sib and ZenAku. It's important information. See who's going to get that early upper hand, and we'll see how corrupted Keep is going to go. Now, lineup-wise, it is that Strog versus BJ. That mobility, which is super important in a map like this. You can slide around, especially with the main items being so close together. Really fast movement helps you kind of soak them up in the blink of an eye. But as we now go into this early fight, Sib's going to try and get some of that range damage first. You need to make sure that BJ is so weak that you can still outgun him at the top of the dual wield.
Good amount of tribal damage coming in. Doesn't have the LG yet though, so that is one of the reasons why Sib is kind of holding back, doesn't want to push in too aggressively because he's lacking that primary medium distance weapon that is so important on this map. Now Sib does happen to have a bit of a stack advantage. Out comes the Peeker, and Peeker is particularly dangerous on this map. Beautiful little rocket through the tiny gap in between the bricks. Doesn't do all that much damage, but still, it's those little things that add up over time.
Oh, Sib is going to drop down. Nice timing on the Mega. Armor is going to be low though, aka non-existent in this point. And with ZenAku having his dual wield and the fact that he is armored, it's a bit early. ZenAku is going to be able to push in and take this away before heavy spawns. Absolutely, ZenAku having superior timing right there.
Yeah, Sib definitely not getting that quite right. ZenAku, good use of the weapons right there. The #1 counter to the Peeker drone is of course the railgun, which you don't have on this map. So ZenAku has to make do with the shotgun, which is a bit nerve-wracking because you have to wait until the very last moment for pulling the trigger. Sib getting read like an open book. ZenAku holding down that center part of the map, knowing that his opponent is low on health, that Sib doesn't have the LG and that he wants to make a move to get that item. And ZenAku punishes that relentlessly.
And with that 2-0 lead, it's not going to be much on a map like Corrupted. So ZenAku is still going to make sure he's asserting himself across the map. Not going to look to shut things down too much. I think he was looking to push out a little bit first. If he had to back up, he can take that, if needed, to really maximize its use. But I think so far he's looking to just make sure he knows where Sib is, but more importantly, he's able to beat Sib to every important item on his spawn. So here comes the Mega. 10 seconds. Plenty of time for Sib to really get a footing in here. But the ZenAku stack, and again, more importantly, just having the dual wield. He's not going to pop it. ZenAku, the patience reserved, saving it for when the time is right, and he's getting so much heavy machine gun that Sib is again looking kind of tender, all things considered. He has soaked up the lights that are in the nail gun room. That's definitely a good start for him, but again, that delay between the two items. Sib has just not been able to exist on these items so far.
That has a lot to do with ZenAku's positioning. It has been exceptional so far, and it needs to be playing on this map against the Strong as well, because he is so slow in comparison to that crouch slider that if he messes up on his positioning, his opponent Sib is just absolutely going to beat him to the item and steal it right underneath his nose. So ZenAku, positioning, such an important part in this matchup in particular.
Almost hit a good rocket. Just managed to clear it, but again, the important thing really is just how much of a delay exists between these items. And I really do favor a stacked BJ with control on a map like this, because both of the items, they're really combat heavy. It's kind of rare that you're able to get one completely unchallenged, but even if it does get challenged, if BJ has the stack and he has a dual wield, I mean, look at how rarely ZenAku's actually even used the dual wield in the first place. When the time comes to use it, he'll be able to just delete Sib, unless Sib can really contest the damage, which, to be honest, he really hasn't been able to do. And now with that 100 damage rocket, it's even worse. Again, he's forced to back up, and I mean, this has been a good 4 minutes for ZenAku.
Absolutely. On the other hand, though, him hanging onto that dual wield as much as he is might also backfire at one point, because yes, he's got the ability ready when he needs it, but he's also just leaving every single one of the hourglasses up for Sib to farm time and time again. We've already seen a whole lot of Peekers being used, not necessarily to great effect just yet, but who knows? It might just come out and do a ton of damage, but this time it is all about ZenAku doing the damage. Heavy machine gun kind of taking over the role of the railgun on this map, and that is all it took to punish Sib into yet another frag loss. ZenAku 3-0 of lead, pretty convincing already.
Now, as we pass this 5-minute mark, this has been ZenAku's map the entire time. Nothing really has changed it. And he is finally going to pop that dual wield. Does he use it to go in? A little bit of the rocket to keep away, but Sib once more just cannot get anything to push ZenAku away. He's going to go down. Worst time to die because the Mega is just about to appear again. And, I mean, it's just been a really good map. There's really not much else you can say about it so far. He continues to hold all the items. He's getting all the damage on Sib. Sib is too weak to fight. And we'll see if the rest of the map's going to follow through.
Yeah. ZenAku just perfect control, and then the one time that it looks like Sib might just steal an item, ZenAku just forces him through the teleporter before he can even pick it up. Now this is promising though. ZenAku does manage to take away the Mega Health. Sib does not want to stand around for that one. That rocket to the face might help him out a fair bit, though. ZenAku has to think twice before he just rushes in blind before the heavy, and Sib has got a pretty decent position to either cut him off or make his way onto the item first. It looks like he will just do the latter, as ZenAku holding back a bit more passive, doesn't want to put himself that far out there.
Another 100. That's a really good start for ZenAku, to be honest. He was weak, but he had the light in sight, and he knows. All he has to do is get enough damage to back up and take that light. And as we go into the final stages of this map, Sib's got time to finish things off. A lot of other maps would be a little bit concerned about this difference, but the reality is if Sib is somehow able to get a frag right now, which he's able to secure, and just in time for a heavy, so best case scenario, this is the skeleton key for that comeback, because now he's the one that's in control of these items. He's in position for a Mega. That said, be careful. Don't want ZenAku to kind of run in there and steal it away. But 3 minutes for 3 frags, it's totally possible, Flea.
Sure is. We've seen it time and time again, and this is Corrupted Key. One frag can very easily just daisy chain together into another one. Sib, big fumble right there. ZenAku finally whipping out the dual wield again, and it does so much damage. Sib lost every bit of advantage he had in that messy engagement, and ZenAku doesn't want to give him any angles just yet. Sib using that mobility, that speed that he has over ZenAku to at least get himself onto the Mega Health. If he hadn't done so and had given up full control to ZenAku, this might have been an impossible order, but he at least manages to dish a good amount of damage, collect at least one of the items. He has to win this fight though. ZenAku pretty low. A tickle of LG will do it. And there we go, Sib, one step closer to tying things back up.
Oh, that is actually a really, really bad self-damage rocket. He gets the perfect call out on the spawn, but he damaged himself enough that ZenAku could have almost run in there and finished him off before the Mega spawn. Thankfully, Sib was able to recover, but again, now it's 2 frags in 2 minutes. He's getting about a frag a minute near the end. We'll see if he's going to be able to continue, but ZenAku's getting tons of damage, and I think that's likely to be the end. He gets the armor at the very end after that frag. Now there's 3. I mean, yeah, he has to push. This really is all Sib can do, and he hasn't really got the weapons to do it. He's just collected the LG, but too late. Too little too late here. ZenAku looking good.
Yeah, ZenAku just very disciplined and reactive in those final few engagements, taking up a solid position and then dishing out the damage he's been doing this entire map. And Sib just eats it all up, but this late into the map, barely a minute left on the clock. Sib has a position for Mega, but even if he gets this item, what's he going to do with it? Out comes the peeker, and it will be ZenAku securing the item. Is the Australian just going to push in, or will he buy this time? Looks like he wants to play it passively. He doesn't want to give Sib any more angles than he can afford to lose.
Well, I think getting a map like this is going to mean a great deal either side, with it's really just how... No, absolutely not. 2 frags in this time.
Sib don't see him. I think you could see the gun. You could see the gun sticking out behind the corner. Oh no! If
and
Sib
he misses the heavy too.
If Sib had caught that, that would
still find him. He still has time. He does still have time. Only for a few more seconds. Here we go. The fight. Messy engagement for Sib. He knocks himself away. It's not even about the damage at that point. It's the fact that he pushed himself out of the fight. And now he doesn't have time. More time to be had. Feels bad, man.
That is a bit heartbreaking if you are a Sip fan. If he had caught ZenAku in that situation, if he had noticed that his opponent was there's nothing that ZenAku could have done to escape that. He would have been absolutely done. The only thing he had to work with was a heavy machine gun. No stack to his name, Sip would have just landed 2 easy rockets, and that would have been that. He would have had around 40 seconds to pick up another frag, which on this map with such an advantage is absolutely feasible. I probably would have given it to Sip to tie things up if only he had spotted ZenAku right there.
It's one of those things where, you know, we're the master of hindsight thanks to our X-ray and the spectator and everything else. It almost sounds a little bit painfully obvious, those kind of moments, but they are heartbreaking. It's one small mistake can cost you oh so much in this kind of competition. But as we said at the start, Corrupted Keep is always that map that's kind of the one-off. You know? It's a little bit different to everything else. Now, on the flip side of that, we're about to go into Ruins of Sarnath, which can be a pretty good map for Sib if he is hitting the rail accuracy that we know he can. But it's definitely not a consistent, like, every single map basis when it comes to that. Sib needs to be on form going into this one. But I do have faith in Sib going into Ruins.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we saw some really solid plays come out from Sib, but just overall, ZenAku, he had the better positioning for most of the fights, and when it really came down to it, he did most of the damage. Not the highest of accuracy, but he hit when he needed to, and that is everything that matters. And when ZenAku managed to get a frag, more often than not, he had at least some resources available to him to just carry on that momentum a bit, pick up a mega when he was low, and continue that, whereas Sib, when he got a frag, there just wasn't as much of an opportunity for him to really establish any sort of momentum or get into his groove.
So it looks like we're going to be loading in now, so it's only just short of a minute before we're going into this next map, but I think this would be a good opportunity for Sib to make things a one-to-one situation. Like I've said, he tends to look quite strong on this map, especially when he's hitting the accuracy, and that's the big thing about Sib, but confidence is another element to him, quite significantly. You know, sometimes he'll go into a map and he's just not feeling it, and it's kind of reflected in that, but when he's having a good day, it's an entirely different ball game altogether. Now, matchup-wise, Sib, he's going to have the shred potential of the Dire Orb, the reposition, but ZenAku, he does like those big bodies, and we are going to see a Sorlag on the other side, so there is going to be quite the movement and stack combined for Sib to have to try and really put a dent into, so we'll see how he's able to manage here, Flea.
Yeah, of course, ZenAku, he's got that extra stack, but Sorlag is a thick lady, and she will absorb the damage from that orb like it's no one's business. So clearly ZenAku has to be aware of that burst damage potential that Sib might deploy at any time. First good rail will come out of Sib. Won't make the second. Very little of a delay between the items, so it's looking like it will just be Sib picking up the mega. ZenAku going for the heavy, bit of a reversal of what we saw the first time around. I'm seeing a bit of a delay right there. It's around 5 seconds. Whoever comes out on top now could potentially get both of them. First big brawl though. LG versus the Spit that won't connect, and ZenAku somehow felt like he was definitely trailing after that first little engagement, but the Spit into the rocket as Sib just flies on through the teleporter did everything for him.
I mean, in both situations, ZenAku had the perfect call out on Sib going through a teleporter both times in a row. Sib, understandable to go through it the first time because he had so much stack. The second time was a bit more risky because he had a little bit left to work with, right? And those rockets were fantastic. And by the time he could even get some LG, it was a done deal. Now, as we go into our next item, ZenAku in a position to really shut this down. It's a hard angle for Sib to challenge when he's against the wall like that. The Dire Orb to create that somewhat of a mix-up, you know, which side is he going to go to? Does he teleport? Does he not? The problem is Sib has had no choice but to concede. And ZenAku wants information, but Sib was ready for the two-piece combo. That was fantastic. If ZenAku hit that acid, that would have been a pretty big win for him because he'd been able to, he would have been able to take the mega and then had the information over where Sib was going to run away from the armor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That Spit, if that had connected, it could have changed the entire outcome of that fight. But Sib landing some beautiful rockets, and those were not easy rockets either. Straight up to ZenAku holding that top ledge. Very difficult to pull off, but he did it, and in style as well. Now Sib will be securing the heavy. Of course, he can rocket jump with impunity. Won't take as much damage as any of the other characters. Spit will connect, but he does have some help levels to work with. Now ZenAku actually getting the spit damage twice. Sip walked through it unintentionally. ZenAku's defensive plays have been solid. Sip might actually be in a bad situation right now. ZenAku is going to pounce on that and will get himself the frag. Sip just pushed that situation a bit too much. ZenAku was hitting like a truck every time Sip showed his face, but he kept going at it. Oh my! The point where he was too low. The rockets though!
He's pushing incredibly heavy, the swap to the shotgun, but Sib's taking so much splash damage just like that. He is not out of the woods just yet. Teleport gets used, the turnaround rail from ZenAku. That would have been a disgusting shot. That would have been a ridiculous shot right there. But the question is, how do both players lick their wounds? You know, Sib looking to push a little bit. Quite risky to do so. Before that light, he was definitely railable.
Absolutely. Now Mega will be taken by Sib. ZenAku still one frag in the lead, but not looking all that good right now. He's got a decent amount of stack to work with. He's got the weapons as well, but it is Sip who is in control of the map. And ZenAku kind of playing a bit more of a passive playstyle right now. Doesn't want to engage out in the open, needs a bit more information. Gonna hear the timing for the heavy pickup. Knows that Mega is soon, and he's gonna take position for it.
This is that moment though, you know, right, where you're not 100% sure where everyone is, and you have to just put your ear to the floor, be patient, and just listen. You know, get as much information as you possibly can, then plan your next attack. In this case, he's at least got timing on that heavy, thanks to sitting down and listening out for it. He does have a pretty inferior stack compared to Sib, but the rail game might see to that as they now start to exchange. That's 100, at least, just like that. And with the heavy about to spawn, we get timing for another time. And ZenAku making sure he's at least in a good position for this Mega. The acid spit, try and get some of that range damage to open up. ZenAku has had some really, really nice ranged combos, and it took Sib quite a while to stop the acid bleeding. So there was information there for ZenAku as well. That rocket is a really good start. And that rail's even better. Can he finish it, Flea? Oh no!
Okay, that was a weird finish to that engagement. Was expecting Sip to just clean that up instantly. I think it was more of an accident that ZenAku just fell straight down his lap, and now once again he's the one on the run. Things are changing quickly at this point. We saw relatively little action for a few minutes now. Both players just playing a lot of respect to their opponent, knowing that they just have potential to deal so much damage in quick succession. As we see right there, the meltdown, every single one of those toxic balls will connect. As ZenAku extending his lead right now. Sip, that's the reminder why you don't get too close to Sorlag.
It is the benefit, I mean, similar to a Keel effect, being able to fire a rail and not being punishable during the downtime, because you can just go for your ability in between. Use it as part of your burst, your increased damage. And it makes Sorlag such a scary champion in this kind of setting. And as we have surpassed that 5-minute warning, Sib running out of time here. You really can't afford to concede too many more frags. The danger is that that was a big push. So much of the plasma comes out. And with ZenAku collecting the items, it just makes that stack so much more severe. And that rail was delicious. Delicious. Oh, not so delicious.
I was about to say that I'm loving the ZenAku horizontal rocket jumps just to get himself some more speed, but he definitely fumbled that one. Had a real opportunity if he had been able to build up enough speed, kind of clipped himself into the ceiling. Now there's a huge delay between the two items, 15 seconds between Heavy and Mega. So ZenAku can just perfectly rotate these until the end of time, as long as he manages to avoid damage and just keep Sip in this submissive state where his opponent just struggles to make an entry anywhere. Every single time Sip is showing his face, just like in that encounter, ZenAku needs to do that kind of damage, and that will allow him to just coast on through till the end of this map.
Well, it feels like every time Sib is showing his face, there's always a rocket around the corner right as he's done it, or a nail in this respect. Sib going in for the dire orb. I mean, yeah, that's going to be just a little bit of range. The self-damage, ZenAku knows that he's still going to be weak, listening out to that pre-death scream from Ranger. But I think he's going to be pretty aggressive. Another good rail, ZenAku. Looking so good right now. And with the control that he's established, the items that he holds, and how weak Sib is, more time wasted, and deny. No lights for you, Sib. See you later. 5-2 now. And by all means, this really should be another map. Starting shotgun. I mean, I do quite like the starting shotgun choice. It just gives you the highest damage you can fresh off spawn against a large champion, but yeah, really nothing he can do there. It would have been a miracle if he got the frag.
Yeah, absolutely. At least he did manage to steal away the heavy, but at this point, dropping a frag just for that, it won't cut it. You're just extending the lead that your opponent has over you, making it increasingly more difficult to make that actual comeback happen. And I think that ZenAku is feeling awfully confident in his own ability right now. Gonna continue cycling the items, and his damage output has been obscene. These rails catch up. ZenAku, he's a brawler, everyone knows it, but you need to have the combat skills to back it up, and clearly he does. Liking the fakie by Sib there though. Both players screamingly low, but it is ZenAku who picks up the Mega first. Yeah, that is going to spell the end of this map. I don't see any way for Sib to tie things up or get a lead anymore.
Absolutely not. He's got some good weapons here in this fight. There's a chance he's going to be able to get a frag now. Oh,
Suicide?
I don't think that was at the same time either. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Yeah, I think Sib probably just realized that he was dead because he got hit by the poison and there was no bubbles around close enough.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Just finished himself off right there, but yeah, that is going to indeed spell GG for map 2. ZenAku convincingly so, once again coming out on top of his American opponent Sib. The Australian is looking good to keep his place in the Pro League.
And the shred continues. That final frag, or probably not. I imagine there's going to be at least one more here, but ZenAku absolutely putting on this display of damage throughout the entire map. And every time there was an item, how many of these fights actually took place right near one of the items? And how many times did ZenAku kind of score first blood, right? He hit the first rail, the first rocket, the first bit of splash from anything. Nails, for crying out loud. ZenAku was always in a better position, always. Never was Sib the one that was in control of the fight. I'm going to start this fight, I'm more comfortable, and I'm going to get that damage. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, and this is something that we talked about on map 1 as well, Corrupted Keep. ZenAku's positioning has just been superior and has given him so much freedom of movement around the map. He dictates the terms of the engagement. He decides who leaves, who stays, and who ends up victorious in almost every last one of these fights. So ZenAku very confidently keeping control of that center area of the map so often, where he knows that that split is extra effective. So whenever Sib does push in aggressively or does try to use the orb to get close, ZenAku still has his own burst damage at the ready.
So, I'm going to be honest, I really expected a little bit more from that map from Sib. It definitely felt like ZenAku just really had his number through the entirety of it. At no point did it even seem really past this you know, the initial few minutes that Sib had a chance there, because ZenAku, he was always on the items. He always had both of them, you know what I mean? And then the fights would take place nearby because Sib wanted to make his presence known. I mean, look at how often these frags happen where he just wants to make sure that ZenAku doesn't just take it for free, but then he takes more damage than he's able to dish out. So it's not like there's any kind of win there. And I actually have to say, some fumbled execution from the fights. I don't know whether Sib's getting a little bit irritated as the map went on, but a lot more rocket self-damage than I was expecting.
Yeah, I think Sib just often got caught in these really bad situations, perhaps playing it a bit too aggressively at time and not just going passive, trying to do that rail damage. You know, you've been hyping up his rail a fair bit, one of his key weapons. So I think that if you would have focused on that a bit more, rather than pushing in to try and contest or do damage on an item, he probably would have had a better shot at winning this. Sometimes you just really need to say, I'm not going to go for this at all. I'm in no situation, no position to take a fight under any terms. I'm going to stick to the basics, get the weapons, get the small armors, get myself up to that base stack that I want before I try anything whatsoever. And I think Sib just sometimes didn't do enough of that.
And a lot of those plays, they would have worked with other champions, smaller champions. The danger is you're up against a Sorlag who has the stack, and not just the stack, but the acid spit. You know, so you're going in for those pushes, those choke points. It's not just rockets you have to deal with, it's the acid. And that really, really served its purpose on more than one occasion on that map. But that's in the past already, as we're now going into our next location, Molten Falls. Now, there needs to be some kind of major turnaround here for Sib, because he is running out of maps to play with, Flea.
Absolutely, this is it. His final shot of securing himself a spot in the Quake Pro League, or the Quake World Championships rather, because that's what we're on about this weekend. It's a win it or lose it. If Sip drops this map, ZenAku will stay in the tournament and he will evacuate the bracket. Good little trap there from Sip though, using the piercing sight right off the bat, figuring out that his opponent has delayed the item and instead just waiting with the LG to try and do a fair bit of damage. Now Sip doesn't have rockets, doesn't have a rail, and I think ZenAku is pretty well aware of it. Might try to use this opportunity to deny at least one of those.
Now, I mean, it's really going to be important for Sib on this map to make sure he gets that rail. I think that's why ZenAku is being so comfortable back there. Like, he's going to be able to get the heavy now, and there is going to be perfect timing on that too, thanks to the piercing sight. Does manage to spring a little bit of a trap, but not enough to really make ZenAku shy to push. He has tons of armor. Still, Sib without a rail. That's going to be a problem for him until he's able to get that access to the range damage. But ZenAku has the perfect shout again. He's setting up shop near rail for a good reason, Flea.
Yep, he is extremely well aware that Sip is still lacking that weapon. Now this should finally give Sip the railgun. He's pushing in aggressively, has to dodge a few rockets here and there. Nice little combo, I was about to say, but he misses the follow-up rail. That might come back to bite him, using that tiny little pillar to get some extra splash damage off, and it's all of a sudden ZenAku, no! Sip, I was about to say, Sip securing himself control at long last, but that rocket turns everything around. He is railable, still is. Zen, is he gonna find his opponent, or will Sip manage to recover from this?
How long is it going to take for the lights? They are just going to only just appear. Lovely rail and a really good rail. Two of them unreturned, which just put them in a great position for this Mega. The danger is that there's still no armor, so in and out. Absolutely best result there for Sib, taking no damage at all. Ooh. It seems like there's definitely more emphasis on this rail now. Sab actually has access to it. That's a really good tribal too. Armor's gonna trade. Piercing sight. Here we go. Oh, misses the piercing sight shot.
Oh wow, good rockets coming out of Sib. ZenAku, even though he manages to secure the Mega, takes so much pain right now. Does just sneak on out. Sib was expecting or counting on the double back and was waiting to dish out that final shot to secure himself the frag at long last. But ZenAku just steams on. Is in a really bad spot now. Yeah, the missed rocket was a difficult one, granted, as he was about to drop down, but ZenAku clutches on for dear life to the little bit of health that he has left. And Sip, even though he has been the better stacked player for the last minute and a half or so, still nowhere close to getting himself into the lead.
Opening rail. This is Sib's green light to push in. ZenAku gets stuck on the door, it looks like. And he's not going to be able to escape. And just like the many times we see before, Sib gets the frag at a really good time this time. Right as the item spawns, but wait, the rocket damage! Off he goes!
Ring out.
Yes, he did. He double jump, tried to save him, but
yeah,
it just prolonged things a little bit.
Yeah, I think he just walked off, it seemed like, too, because he was standing on the ledge for a moment, and then the Berserk came out, and he just took one stab too many. Oh, the railgun is actually going to kill some of that momentum, and ZenAku, yeah, the rail just pushed him ever so slightly to the side, and he clipped the corner and fell straight back down. Had to go up the bounce pad normally, and Sip just took perfect advantage of that. Beautiful plays from the American. Mega's about to spawn. ZenAku still going for it. So risky. Does take a bad rail though, ZenAku. And again, Sip living up to the hype. Finally.
This is what I mean. Like, the second Sip has confidence in his rail and he starts building a game plan heavily around it, you start to see an entirely different kind of Sip. However, there are only 4 minutes. I don't know why that was so hard to say. I can literally see it right on my screen. Into the map. And there's time. There's a lot of opportunity for ZenAku to make something happen. It's just Sip. A really important thing is that he's controlling the armor. There's a lot of armor that's going to him, so ZenAku's kind of starved for it.
Yep, Zen definitely in a position where he has to play the passive game. doesn't even have base armor, finally gets it up to a 100-100. But look at that monster stack that Sip is working with. I also think that's a factor that has been more important that some might realize is the fact that ZenAku has barely been using the Berserk because it's such a risky ability, and in doing so he's left up so many hourglasses for Sip to eat up and near constantly have that ability, that piercing sight at the ready, and that gives him so much information about his opponent's whereabouts that I think ZenAku is losing the information game.
And one of the main problems is that this isn't even a map where you can really, realistically use Berserk, because it's out in the open. It's not really a point-blank brawl-style map like an Awoken or something very similar, where you would maybe see Berserk used a little bit more. He is going to get some rocket damage. This should be Sip getting taken out. Now, it was after the Mega, so there is going to be a little bit of recharging the batteries that ZenAku has to do, but thankfully down near the ledge, there's plenty of ways to be able to do that. But like I was saying, you're not really going to use Berserk at all on Molten, which means that there's even more emphasis on the other champion being able to collect every hourglass that exists.
ZenAku just has to play this game as if Sip is constantly watching him. He has to be so hyper-vigilant and aware of his opponent's placement. That's a good amount of tribal damage, and the rockets aren't half bad either. That negates the Mega in full, and then some. But still, ZenAku, he's trailing. 2 frags behind. He's got a lot of work cut out for him still. Heavy should be going his way. Sip will leave the area. ZenAku, wise decision not to try and chase through the choke point. Just gonna try and get the read and cut Sip off.
Got some rockets. He did run out, so he has to kind of detour a little bit. Rockets have been a pretty star weapon for him. No damage on the tri-bolt. I like that ZenAku didn't go in for the rail there, just in case Sip kind of doubled back and jumped down. But this is the rail game, right? This is where the stack difference can start to not matter. If one of you gets hit by a rail and the other can't return it, stack difference is non-existent. ZenAku does have a pretty chunky one. But Sip is starting to play a little bit more reserved, and that's because we are less than 3 minutes on the clock. This is, by all counts, that match point kind of map for ZenAku, so Sip needs this desperately. Good rail.
2.5 minutes left to go. Before take a few. ZenAku is in control of the items, but Sip is proving to be a slippery target. Can't quite get a good read or hold on his opponent one bit. I think Sip is just basically using that piercing sight nearly the second he's got it up, just to continuously avoid ZenAku. Surely 2 minutes is a long time, but I think that Sip, there's an inkling in the back of his mind. It's like, I can run down the clock if I play my cards right. Yes, I don't have the mobility that my opponent has, but I've got the information, so I don't need to take these major items necessarily. If I can do some damage and keep him at bay, I should still be fine.
And it is going to be more likely that he is able to do this because of the extra piercing sights, the lack of hourglasses from ZenAku's side, thanks to not using Berserk. And you can't really pop Berserk just to use it up, right? Because on this map, you can't really be melee only out in the open. It's a death sentence. Now, as we go into the final stages of this map, it's either going to be Sib's final map or his opportunity to get that lifeline that he so desperately needed. ZenAku has kind of ruled this series with an iron fist up until this point. And as it's less than a minute and a half, Sib is doing a fantastic job. And it looks like his piercing sight is coming back in 5 seconds. Even more information awarded.
Yeah. ZenAku will finally hear Sip, though he's right below you. Oh, the model of the railgun kind of covered the exit. Stopped ZenAku from seeing him. Sip is playing this perfectly. Now the piercing sight has been burnt. Won't have it for 20-30 seconds. We're gonna get caught out. ZenAku, a bit too slow. Of course, it's easy for us to say hindsight 2020 with the X-ray, but he had him just around the corner. Fortunately for him, though, Sip gets away scot-free, even has the Mega to help him out a bit, and now ZenAku. The opportunities are dwindling, time is running out, he has to do something fast.
That rail certainly makes things difficult. Jumps down because he has no choice, and Sib scores the GG, bringing us into a 4th map. And I think he played it incredibly well. It came down to the rail, didn't it? Massive part of this gameplay was the range game and hitting those shots that we know Sib is capable of hitting. And I do strongly believe that the visor was a large factor for this. He pops the Berserk, but last minute. That was a bonus Berserk.
Yeah.
Happy to see
Just for the fans, just showing the guns and with the fists can do the man that is ZenAku. Yeah, good game indeed. Sib finally getting his first map win this series. Still has a shot at staying in this matchup and making his way into the Quake World Championship, but it is going to be difficult. This was a very hard-fought victory, and as you said, I fully agree. The piercing sight was instrumental to Sib taking home this map.
Also, looking at those stats, I don't know if I'm completely wrong, but it looked a lot like ZenAku only hit one rail on Sib the entire map. I think it was 1 out of 15, and then over 1,000 damage of the rail was dished out by Sib in return. The rail alone allowed Sib to convincingly outdamage ZenAku, and you're going to hit these amazing opening rails on retreat. The piercing sight was almost always available, and it played a major part in this victory. And it's kind of the weakness of Doomslayer coming about. Like on the maps where his double jump can be the absolute game changer. I mean, look at that. Incredibly accurate rails. But on a map like, you know, a smaller one where the double jump is constant and it's always there, I was kind of surprised to see the Doom, in all honesty, because of this kind of situation. How much control did Sib have? Because he had pretty much had a wall hack every 30 seconds at least.
Yeah, indeed, and ZenAku just couldn't deal with that information disadvantage. We saw it especially in the last few minutes. He just kept jumping everywhere around the map, making a lot of noise too, because that's pretty easy to pick up on. And Sib just put himself out of harm's way time and time again. And then whenever he used that piercing sight, he landed a rail or two as well. And that just kept his opponent's stack at a reasonable level, where even though ZenAku had the advantage, had the stack lead, he wasn't in a comfortable position where he could just go guns blazing through a doorway and take any fight that he wants. So Sib played that perfectly for those last few minutes and got himself a deserved win.
So things are going to change a little bit, Flea. We're going into Blood Run, which could not be any more different. It's smaller. It's more, I mean, heavily dependent on how the player chooses to approach the map. You know, we spent a long time talking about Blood Run as being the slow map, the defensive map. The map that will go down to a couple of frags, because there was a time where everyone just played Blood Run that way. That's not the case anymore. There's definitely a little bit more variety on it. You see a lot more players, they can be aggressive, fast, furious. But champion-wise, I believe it's Athena versus Nick, so it's two lights going into this one. Complete mobility versus a Ghost Walk, which is big risk, big reward on a map like Blood Run, because when we do see Nick's players, the Ghost Walk doesn't do as much. You get completely overwhelmed on a map like this.
Absolutely, and of course that passive ability, the wall jump that Nyx has, is so powerful on this map as well, especially around the center area with the heavy. It is so nice to not have to do any sort of a nail gun or a rocket jump to make your way over to that item, and you can just traverse any way you want without delay or losing any of your stack. Aggressive push from Sib, this is very nice actually. Forcing ZenAku to burn that Ghost Walk immediately, just to avoid getting stuck on that tiny little ledge right there.
Ooh, it looks a little bit like ZenAku had the super shotgun trap in mind. Now, major element for Athena is just always that piece of utility you can use at a moment's notice. You'll rarely catch an Athena without a grappling hook, at least one of them. Ooh, that one doesn't quite hit. Oh, knocked down. Wait a second, Sib. An easy pickup. Basically no damage dished out there. And a great rocket. 100. Perfectly timed. And he's going to use it to chase down Ghost Walk. Can he get the good read? Where's the reappear going to be? I mean, so many ways you can go in this room. You're going to have to get real lucky to get a good read on that one.
No frags just yet. Plenty of spirit and spunk from both of these players. Aggressive fights almost incessantly. Sib catches the opponent quite nicely. ZenAku doesn't have the Ghost Walk at the ready, but deals a good amount of damage in retaliation. He hadn't landed that tri-bolt right there. Sib could have walked away with the frag off the bat. Very fun matchup this is. I think this is the first time we've seen two lights go up against each other. Indeed, unlikely to see one of these extremely passive Blood Runs that we often see.
The the Battle of the Tribal, it's going to matter a great deal with 2 lights. One good string of Tribal can be deceivingly powerful when you play champions that just do not have the same level of stack. Great rail to open things off. It's going to even things out just a little bit. ZenAku's going to be able to retreat to a light armor thanks to power up. Well, power up room, it used to be. Been a while, but
Yeah. Good use of the Ghost Orb right there. Punishing it the moment he's in danger. Sib, can he get out? 16 points of health. Cheeky grappling hook right there. Not sure if ZenAku realizes just how low Sib was after that encounter. Just 2 bullets of heavy machine gun would have cleaned up his opponent. 2 bullets of normal machine gun would have done it too. But Sib lives to fight another day using the blood pool to his advantage to get back some of that health. Of course, standing in the heals you slowly. Still 0-0. Plenty of action, but no frags just yet.
neither player really in a position to push, to get that finish in the fight. Because right now, there's been lots of opening damage, but if we're talking the ability to finish the job, either Athena's out of there with a hook, or ZenAku is getting a Ghost Walk and it can escape. It's going to be catching both champions. You have to catch them without their resources, really.
Dip now. The one holding the center area of the map. Control heavy. ZenAku is the Mega Phase name. The big delay between these two items, but on a map like Blood Run, where both of these champions have this kind of mobility, it doesn't matter as much as it would in some of the other arenas in the map pool. Decent amount of tribal damage. I think that is the signal for Sib to be more aggressive. Swinging through the doorway, rockets are solid, but ZenAku pushing. That Ghost Walk will get caught out on the reappear. Sib read that perfectly, and finally, player on the board. Sib 1-0 up, and the super shotgun at close range will clean up the squishy, tiny champion that is Nyx. Sib accelerating the pace of the game.
Sib had a perfect plan there. He knows that ZenAku has spawned down near Rail. Rail is all he has. It was, brave to jump down there knowing that there is a Rail in hand, all the same, but there was confidence, and he knows that if I just jump down there and finish the job, ooh, that super shotgun definitely didn't tickle. Oh, the brutal sound that it made. The problem is that much damage putting ZenAku on the back foot. Not a lot of means to get your stack back up. He's going to have a little bit of lights to take, but it's not going to hold a candle to what Sib is currently working with.
I suspect we're going to see more shotgun after that previous engagement. It looks like Sib has suddenly rediscovered how effective the shotgun is against these small, light champions. He's like, hello, this just melts them like it's no one's business. ZenAku, though, still starved for armor. Doesn't have the base stack just yet. I like the sneaky angle from Sib. Won't be able to connect, but got a huge stack advantage. 2 frags in the lead. Not something you want to just sit on for 5 minutes. Look at that!
Style from Sib! Oh, that was so good. I've never seen that one specific harpoon before.
Every single time an Athena is played in the Quake Pro League, I feel like I want to see those swings, not just the pulls in a straight line. I want to see those kinds of fancy moves, and Sib, he is delivering. But he needs more.
I mean, it definitely took ZenAku by surprise. He wasn't ready for that.
Oh yeah. ZenAku was not expecting that one bit. Luckily for him, he did have the Ghost Walk at the ready, so he gets to escape and retreat to fight another day. Gonna push it once again, actually. For an aggressive one, too. Rockets need to be good. ZenAku actually has an advantage right now. Is he going to push this?
Only just not railable with Sib, but his danger is going to be his lack of armor, but he has to win this fight. He tries to swing by, downtime of rails, tries to get a speed boost, and he's out of there, but barely. Can he survive? Is ZenAku going to be able to chase this? He's still railable. He's still railable. He needs armor. And now he's not railable. Only just. Only just. This is a scary game to play if you're Sib.
Yeah.
Especially now, we can hear that Nyx is coming. The rail hits its mark. And Sib once more is not out of the woods. A terrible time to get hit by a rail and put to 40 HP. He's going to be able to once again be not railable, but it is barely. Oh, I mean, this is just a pattern. Here we are again, 3 times in a row.
He gets 100 health. ZenAku hits him with a good rail. He goes through a teleporter, and then he just picks up a small bubble and loops right back around. It's a pattern, indeed. We've been seeing this several times now. ZenAku, he needs to start doing something. I wonder when we're going to see that aggressive ghost walk, because I feel like he's had some opportunities to pull it. Just hasn't committed. Here we go, he's actually slipping on by. Takes a bad shotgun, 2 of them, but Sib painfully low, and ZenAku overkill to be sure. 90 damage rail for just 10 points of health, but it will finally put him on the board. Plenty of opportunity for ZenAku to tie things up still.
Loads of armor and none for Sib. We talk about the danger of playing the lights. Being caught without armor as a light champion is kind of miserable for that reason. Teleports right into death. Thanks to the rocket, and this is going to be a chase. You better hope you've got some harpoons ready. The swap to LG, ZenAku keeping it nice and simple, and at potentially the last minute, stealing this map away. This is going to be a disastrous end for Sib. The tri-bolt hurt so much to the rail to finish. What a combo for the Australian, looking insane in what is dawning on our final 2 minutes. This is either going to be stabilizing for Sib or ZenAku running away 3-1 at the last minute. Sib would be heartbroken to lose like this, but it's looking as the frags go down and down. It's getting closer to defeat. Oh, this is bad news, Flea.
It sure is, and that's one of the issues with this particular matchup. If you're ZenAku and you get caught out like that, you've got the Ghost Walk. You can escape time and time again. When you're Sib and your opponent is the one who's actually got the momentum behind him, what do you do except die time and time again? Now ZenAku, he knows that Sib has to push quickly too. He's got barely more than a minute left on the clock for 3 whole frags. ZenAku, the patient game. That's what he's gonna play right now. Defensive.
Ooh, he gets it! Does he use this to get a frag? He is trying to evade. This is all borrowed time. This is all time that Sib doesn't have. The longer it takes him, and every missed rail that comes out, especially now, the perfect pathing, the light armor, the mega health. This is such bad news for Sib, because now it's going to take a lot of work. And by the time he's even able to get ZenAku, he's probably going to have Ghost Walk back.
I mean, it's something you see a lot in these final minutes. Sib has to make the decision between, do I want to chase and do damage, or do I want to continue picking up the items? And when you're this late into the map, you just have to go for the damage. I'm
about to call GG on this.
Select items. It's done. It's done. ZenAku still has the Ghost Walk. Sib cannot make the comeback happen. Looks like ZenAku will take this one, and Sib, he just pushed aggressively because he had no choice, but in doing so you're leaving up the items, and then out of nowhere ZenAku just loops back around and he steals away your own Mega. ZenAku, the Australian player, is going to be taking this one home 3-1 to secure his spot in the Quake Pro League and fend off, I think this is his 3rd challenger that he's beaten so far. Good performance.
If anything, all this really is just a great demonstration of how far ZenAku has come as a player in the Pro League. Because when he first made his entry, it was a good initial showing. You know, that first relegation match we saw him play in, I think he really did, raise a few eyebrows. But in the Pro League itself, he had a hard time. But very slowly but surely, he has been on a climb. And that climb has been severe, to the point where the way he's playing now, he's dedicated his life to this. This is his method. This is what he does. He's got the mindset for it. He's building himself not only as a player, but as a person. Heartbreaking stuff for Sib. It is a shame to see it end that way, and I know he's going to be gutted, but I have no doubt we will always see him back in some form. But on that note, as we build up some analysis, we're going to go for a quick break. Thank you for watching so far. We will be right back with the Quake World Championships.